Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. Rost?
Here.
Okay, all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to be changing up the agenda a little bit tonight. We're going to have the second public hearing. It's item B first.
That's the budget.
That's the budget, right? So the purpose of this evening's public hearing is to accept comments on the proposed amendment to the Peters Township 2022 budget. This public hearing was advertised in the Observer Reporter on July 11th, July 18th, and as well on the Peters Township website. Mr. Jarosky will make a brief presentation outlining the proposed changes, and this will be followed by questions from council, as well as comments from the audience. Action on the proposed budget agenda, or budget amendment, is tentatively scheduled for Monday, August 8th, 2022. Mr. Jarosky, the floor is yours.
Sure. So each year, Peters Township Council amends the existing budget for one of three reasons generally: to adjust for departures from what the anticipated budget was. The authority for this is granted in the Home Rule Charter. The budget can be amended by ordinance each year, provided that any amendment shall fall within the expected revenues for that year. So typically we do this in the fall. Given some of the projects and programs that we've talked about at the council level over the past several months, Mr. Lauer and I both felt it was appropriate to do an amendment now while those projects are ongoing. So again, I mentioned there are three reasons why we do these amendments. The first reason is why in Public Works and the Fire Department specifically, we allocate wages by program as opposed to just in one lump sum under those departments. So for example, in Public Works, you have storm sewers, highway maintenance, and signage, where the total amount of the wages for the department is spread across those programs. But each year, depending on work that may be done in one or the other program, there may need to be an adjustment. So you may take money from storm sewers and put it towards signs as a reflection of more work being done on signage that year, for example. The second reason we make adjustments to the budget is to accommodate projects that were supposed to be completed in the prior year, but instead were completed in the current year. So this year specifically, our paving contractor in 2021, A. Liberoni, could not complete the repaving of Galley Road in 2021. It bled into spring of 2022 when it was completed, and the expenditure was occurred in this year. So we have to adjust the budget to account for that. And finally, there are expenditures that were not anticipated at the time the budget was adopted. A lot of the amendments you're going to see tonight kind of fall within that category. So the first one that you see is within the police administration. As a result of a partnership that the township has with the Food and Drug Administration, Detective Walker works some of their cases, which makes us eligible for asset forfeiture funds. The township received this year roughly $37,500 in forfeiture funds, and as approved by council at a previous meeting, we allocated that money to outfitting the former community room into a police training room. So that's what you see there. It reflected in the amendment on the screen. The building inspection program, council is well aware of our efforts to attract on-staff building inspectors, and since we've struggled to do that in past years, we've had to contract with third-party services. Now, we're currently fully staffed within the building inspection department, but the new building inspectors, some are still getting existing new certifications that they need, but they're also learning our inspection process as well. So we're going to need more third-party help within that department anticipated through the end of the year. That increase that you see reflects that, what our anticipated cost will be. I would point out this particular cost will be covered by additional real estate transfer tax that we're bringing in. The tennis center, we've redefined the employment status of the tennis pros. Previously, they were sort of quasi-employees, quasi-independent contractors, depending on whether they were doing junior development or teaching private lessons. Now, regardless of what program they're working, they're independent contractors with the township. So what you're seeing up there is a reflection of the fact that we're going to see an increased cost in contracted services. This is going to be offset by two things. One, the anticipated salary and wages in this department, in this program, have gone down by about $51,500 is what we anticipate they will. And since all of the fees now that the instructors generate through either private lessons or junior development or whatever are all coming through the township, we're actually increasing the revenue that will further offset this adjustment to contracted services. Yeah, as you can see, yeah, here. The paving program is probably the biggest one. The paving program for the township is funded across 3 funds with various fees. The first is state liquid fuels. That's money we get from gas tax collected by the state. The second is local share gaming revenues that we get as a result of our proximity to Hollywood Casino in North Strabane. And the third fund that is impacted is the Capital Projects Fund. We have in there money we get for unconventional gas well impact fees from the state, as well as municipal funds, essentially taxpayer dollars that are transferred to the Capital Projects Fund to fund road paving. And then any utility contributions we get where a utility is digging up a road and our paving contractor is going to do final restoration. So our 2022 budget includes an estimated expense of $2,030,000 for the paving program. Now, as you can see up there, we received additional funds from state liquid fuels beyond what they projected to give us this year in the amount of $37,000. In addition to that, we received $237,681 in additional gas well impact fees to fund this program as well. So we've had more funds available than we anticipated. On June 13th, Paul, as was discussed at the council meeting on June 13th, Mr. Lauer and Mr. Zemaitis both recommended an award of the township's pavement rejuvenator program, despite the fact that we knew it would go over the anticipated budget of $2,030,000 because we got these excess funds. And at that time, Mr. Lauer had stated that we would need to amend the budget to account for this additional expense. This amendment that you see here to the expenses for the program also accounts for the completion of the paving of Galley Road, as well as the township's contribution to extend water lines along Bebout Road as part of the Bebout Valley Brook Roundabout project.
Ryan, can you just, for the
Sure.
audience, could you explain to them what the Rejuvenator program is and how it, and why we do it?
Okay, well, I cannot explain it as well as Mr. Zemaitis can. He's at the Peters Creek Sanitary Authority tonight, so that is why he's not here.
What
but-
it is that sandy oil that we got on a lot of the streets that were recently paved.
Yes,
And
yes.
the reason we do that is to extend the life of those roads.
Yes, it essentially increases the viscosity of the asphalt on the road and extends its life. We do it 1 year after the road is paved and then 3 years after it's paved. And we have had great success with the Rejuvenator in terms of extending the life of roads beyond 10 years.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Speaking of, we talked before about things we did not anticipate. This was a positive. The fire department received a grant for $40,000 to purchase a cardiac monitor for use in medical emergencies. This was not proposed in the budget. It was not anticipated, but we did receive the funds, and you'll actually have an award for this most likely at your next council meeting. This amendment reflects that expense. Storm sewers, as we decided at the a previous council meeting, we're not going to be doing the Marlboro Drive storm sewer project this year, and instead we're going to be performing a cured-in-place storm sewer lining process. That bid is actually opened on Friday. As a result of that, we need to decrease the anticipated budget for storm sewers from $640,000 to $275,000. And the final amendment, the final portion of the amendment is we did anticipate a bond issue in 2022 to finance construction of the new fire station. We assumed the cost would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $450,000 to the township this year on that bond issue. It turns out the cost of the township is only going to be $225,725, so we're revising that number down to reflect what we will actually pay. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
So any items that the council would like to discuss, questions, concerns regarding this?
Well, I think the one comment I'd make is these are all very positive elements or observations with regard to these revisions, and they reflect, additional funds that we secured during the course of the year that were not anticipated at budget time.
Any other discussion from council? Anybody in the audience like to discuss anything related to this? Mr. Brooks?
Can you state your name, please?
I'm sorry?
Can you state your name, please?
Ronald Books. I live at 855 Devot Road, Benicia. Good evening, council. I'm here to speak as regards the budget. 35 years ago, when I moved to Peters Township, I moved to Peters Township for one specific reason: lowest taxes. I moved here because I did not feel I had an absolute obligation to feed the hungry in Allegheny County. By hungry, I'm talking about political officials. So, sure enough, I'm here. Taxes have been relatively restrained. Thank you all very much. And I'm hoping that we continue this. When we do have some surpluses, I would ask that those surpluses be returned to the taxpayers in the same fashion that we collect taxes. So for the most part, I'm saying let's maintain our budget in the same position or reduce it. Now, nobody's spoken to the fact that we could probably improve efficiency. We're talking about $120,000, for example, to be spent on police training room. What are we going to train them to do that we can't do without the $120,000? What is it that we need to spend that money on? I mean, I'd like to know. Now, as far as money goes, the more money that we can put or keep in the hands of the taxpayer, the more people will want to move to Peters Township. It's basic fundamentals. You want to go where you get the good service for the lesser dollar. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Ryan, can you possibly see if Chief Grimes or one of his people can pull together kind of a summary as to what went into the...
Sure. I just real quick, though, I just would state the $120,000 is actually related to building inspection. The expense within the police budget for the training room is only roughly $30,000.
Okay.
Just to clarify, I mean, it used to be that the fire department and the police department would do their exercises up in the, Firehouse 1, and it's just got to the point where the police department, my understanding is, needed additional space, so plus there was some concern about access to the evidence room and things, because we used to rent that room that they're renovating, and so they don't, it's not like a lecture type training. It's, they'll have obstacles and stuff. They might shut all the lights off, and it's like to try to reenact like certain situations that could actually occur, in the township during the course of their exercising their duties. So it's not, it's not like somebody's coming in and giving them a lecture. It's like, like the fire department does.
Yeah.
You know what that is.
And to Mr. Steigel's point, though, I will ask Chief Grimes to include in his next monthly report sort of an update on the outfitting of the community room.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none.
I move we close the public hearing as to the amendment to the 2022 Peters Township budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 7-0. Next item is going to be the second public hearing, which is revolving around the proposed zoning amendment. This public hearing was advertised in the Observer Reporter on July 11th, 18th, and the 18th, as well as the Peters Township website. Again, Mr. Zarowski will make a brief presentation outlining the proposed changes, and this will be followed by questions from you know what, I'm reading the wrong one. I'm sorry. Okay, this purpose of this evening's public hearing is to accept comments on the proposed amendment to the Peters Township zoning ordinance. This public hearing was also advertised in the Observer Reporter on July 11th and 18th, as well as the Peters Township website. Mr. Coons will be making this brief presentation outlining the proposed changes. It will be followed by questions from council as well as comments from the audience. Action on this proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance is tentatively scheduled for Monday, August 8th, 2022. Mr. Drosky, do you have anything else to add at this time?
No, neither myself nor Mr. Gromek received any comments that public wanted included in the record of the transcript of this hearing.
Turn it over to Mr. Coons then.
I'd just like to point out that I received several emails that appeared to be addressed to all the council members. I think I got them today, and I think I got one last week. But I just assumed they would be here because I thought Mr. Lauer was copying. Did you get one?
I got a few this morning, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if we want to just make those part of the record, but I will say the ones that I read were not in favor of the proposed amendment based upon quality of life and mainly traffic-related issues.
The one, I'm presuming I received the same ones as Mr. Arcuri did, because it's exactly the same tone that the ones I received took.
Okay.
Good evening, members of council, members of the public. We're here to revisit a trio of zoning ordinance amendments that staff has proposed for both the mixed-use activity centers district in the township as well as township-wide for all multifamily residential type developments. The three ordinances that we're looking at tonight, the ordinance amendments, are shown on screen here, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on each one throughout my presentation. The first one we're looking at is completely eliminating the restriction for a maximum of 36 units per structure for multifamily development within the mixed-use activity 1 sub-district of the mixed-use activity district. And I have a map on the next screen that'll highlight that section of the MA district. The second would be within that same overall district, within the entire mixed-use activity district, and that would be reducing the FAR, or the floor area ratio, the maximum development potential of a piece of property, from 1 to 0.85. And then the third, it would be a township-wide change to our off-street parking and loading ordinance that would eliminate the requirement that at least 50% of all spaces for multifamily development be covered on 3 sides. As I mentioned, the first ordinance amendment takes place just within the MA1 subdistrict, which is a part of the overall mixed-use activity district, but this subdistrict, if you're imagining it geographically, is McDowell Lane south along the Route 19 corridor until you get to the end of the township, and then extends a little bit east along Water Dam and into the township, a couple properties. And within this district, again, we're proposing to eliminate the maximum number of units in a single structure for multifamily development, again, and just in this sub-district, not in the entire mixed-use activity district. You know, what this will do is not necessarily restrict the total density. You know, number of structures per building isn't really intended to restrict the total density of entire development, but I guess the intent at the time was to break up a potential multifamily project into a series of buildings. And you know, it predates the current zoning ordinance. I believe it predates our previous zoning ordinance. Really, it's a type of restriction that harkens back to the 80s and 90s, maybe even earlier than that, when you saw a lot of garden-style apartment developments. And, you know, in today's residential market, we're really not seeing that type of development nationwide. We're seeing more akin to luxury-style multifamily developments, and those typically require larger structures, 3-4 stories at minimum, to really make the return on that investment worthwhile. And you ultimately end up seeing, in staff's opinion, a higher quality product in terms of an overall multifamily development. On screen here is an example of a couple styles of garden-style apartments. I grabbed a couple images that are, you know, show what you can see throughout the country for that type of product. And this is just a generic site layout for what, this could potentially result in. Maybe not to this scale, but, you would see a large number of buildings throughout the site and far more spread out than kind of a clustered or one or two buildings that would allow for more units within those single buildings. When we're talking about luxury multifamily, these are the types of products that we're seeing, and I grabbed some examples from our region. This is located in, I believe, this is not the Ridge and Robinson, it's on the bottom of the screen there. Cranberry, yes, this is the Pendleton and Cranberry. This is a recently constructed luxury style multifamily product. A large number of units in the singular structure. This might not be what we see here in the township in the future, at least in terms of architectural style, but it gives you an idea of the types of amenities that are provided as part of these complexes. Another example would be 1440 Main, here close by over in South Point. Again, a large number of units within a single structure. They've got a pool, they've got an activity center. I believe they have a fitness center here. They have meeting spaces, they have community spaces, so a lot of amenities for the residents. And the last example I have is the Ridge at Robinson, which I believe is the most recent of the three examples I grabbed. And you see the similar thing here. You see community spaces, office spaces for people that work in their apartment buildings, games rooms, pools, outdoor gathering spaces. All of these are part of what we see in the luxury multifamily development. And it's really, in staff's opinion, best well suited when you've got the ability to put more units in a singular structure. And this is a site plan that would show what that could look at. I believe this is also the Ridge at Robinson, and again, it's compared to that generic site plan I showed earlier, they've been able to mass more units in a single structure and able to provide those amenities within those structures, and they're not nearly as sprawled out throughout the site. So that's the first of the two amendments that we're looking at tonight. The second would be reducing the maximum development potential FAR, or the floor area ratio, within the entire mixed-use activity district. So that would be all of those purple zoning districts that we saw in that map I showed just a minute ago. And what that means, when you're looking at FAR, again, is the maximum development potential of the property. And if you think about it, today it's at a 1. So really that means if you have an acre of property, which is 43,560 square feet, you could do a 43,560 square foot building. Now, obviously, you have to take into consideration parking and buffers and landscaping, but it gives you an idea in terms of property size to structure size. What we're doing is proposing to reduce that from 1 to 0.85, which is a similar change, and actually it's an identical change we made in 2021 here in the town center in response to the Waters project. I think we saw some response from residents and from council that we wanted to see a development of that mass maybe not happen again, so let's pull back that FAR a little bit and see what that does for potential development. So, if you've got an acre-sized piece of property, I don't know the math on 0.85 or 43,560, but it's certainly less than 1, and it would reduce that maximum size of a building. And the graphics I put together here just show what that may look like on a 3-story building. You can see it's taking up obviously less of the site, and it's allowing more area for green space and parking and other pieces of the pie that make a development what it is. The last change we're looking at tonight is township-wide. This is in all zoning districts. We have a requirement within our off-street parking and loading ordinance that requires 50% of all parking spaces for new multifamily developments to be covered on all 3 sides. Staff has expressed in the past, we typically see these to be not very well thought out, not well maintained in the long term, and unfortunately just become an afterthought as part of these developments. And we don't want to force them to put in things that ultimately might not look the best down the road. Now, that doesn't preclude anyone from doing covered parking, but we don't think it's prudent to make them do at least half of those parking spaces. That's all I have right now. I'm happy to answer any questions from council, and we'll hear, I'm sure, from the audience as well. Thank you.
I'd like to just clarify one thing. We can go to the slide that has the buildings spread around the site.
Yeah.
Ed Zook, Peters
I'm
Township.
sorry, could you tell me?
Ed Zook, Peters
Yeah, well,
Township.
the names are all scrambled for you.
I know.
Yeah. We scrambled.
His name's in front of me.
I'd used it before, so.
Okay, I'm sorry, could you
Just so council and the audience understands, the ordinance amendment tonight, the ordinance as it exists today would allow this type of development to happen on a site that, has 36 units per building. To get 250, they need 7 buildings. So that they can do that today under
the zoning ordinance today. This amendment just allows them to not spread the buildings out, but put them in one. So just so we all understand that key point.
Would you still have the option to do more than one building?
Certainly. Yeah. And you could still do this.
Controlled by FAR, which is being proposed to go down.
Any other questions, comments from council?
Not at this time.
Great, we'll open it up to the audience here. Mr. Smith, do we need to swear anybody in on this?
Yeah, this is a public hearing, so anyone that wants to provide testimony, the court reporter should swear. You can do it in mass. And if you don't swear in and you do later decide to want to add testimony, just let the court reporter know and she'll swear you in at that time.
Okay, so anybody who plans to speak, if you could stand up right now and the court reporter will swear you in.
Okay, you want to raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Guess we'll start with this section. Can you hang on one second? Yeah, we're going to have, you guys are the developer, correct? Yeah, you know what, do you have any comments that you want to make prior to the public comments?
Yeah. I don't think so. My name's Pat Burns. Okay. 15 North Collinwood Drive, Pittsburgh, PA. Good evening, council. My name's Pat Burns. I'm the development manager for Al Nyer. Al Nyer is a commercial real estate developer and design builder who's contemplating a multifamily development at the Winter Circle site, which I spoke to you all earlier this year about. I've been following this amendment process as it relates to the design of our contemplated development. Followed some of the concerns raised by council and how this amendment may impact scale and density of a future development multifamily, particular the Winter Circle site that we're looking at. In regards to scale and density, as we look at this amendment, we don't see it as being a question of scale or density, as Mr. Coons pointed out. That's really controlled by the existing limitations in the zoning ordinance, the floor area ratio, building height limitations, parking ratio limitation, max lot coverage, building setbacks. And as we work through several iterations of a concept at the Winter Circle site, that's really what controlled the scale and density that we felt we could design. What this 36-unit maximum unit per structure limitation and removing this does is allows for a greater quality product, we believe, and it removes really the forced design of a dated 3-story walk-up garden-style development. That's why it's important to us as a developer. We feel that we can deliver a much higher quality product that fits with contemporary trends and matches comparable luxury multifamily suburban projects, and removing that limitation. I think as you did see on the exhibit here, and we've studied it, you could build a development of similar scale and unit count in the range of 200 plus units on that 12-acre site. It would just be sprawled out. It would involve some additional retaining walls, removing some of the vegetative buffers that exist, impacting existing wetlands on the site. But you could reach similar scale, and it would be cheaper construction. However, we feel that that's not fitting for Peters Township. We feel that, again, to meet current trends and to meet the market in terms of comparable luxury Class A multifamily product, that removing this limitation allows for ultimately commanding higher rent, achieving greater value, and delivering a higher quality product to residents of Peter Township, whether it's retaining residents or attracting new residents. I think this offers a new housing option that doesn't currently exist in the township. Can attract a wider range of demographic, whether it's younger educated professionals, seniors looking to downsize, or in between, that perhaps can't afford a $500,000-$600,000 house, but there's not a current high-quality option for them in the township, and we see this as a great opportunity to provide that. So I'll stop there. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So how many units are you proposing?
In a range of 240 units.
200, and then how many buildings?
2 buildings.
Just 2 buildings. So how roughly 120 per?
About 180, and then 68.
Some are bigger, like 3 bedrooms, I would assume.
Yeah, it's a pretty balanced mix between one and 2 bedrooms, about 45% 1 bedrooms, and then the other 55% between 2 and 3 bedrooms.
So how you're proposing and looking to do that, would that change the amount of people living in that area compared to doing something like this? With keeping it the 36 unit max?
Yeah, so the impact there is really, you're going to have, you can't deliver the same amenity package that you could in increasing the units per structure. The amenity package can be more integrated, more accessible, elevator access. You know, if you're building 6, 7 buildings, you're likely not going to build 6 or 7 elevator lobbies. The quality of those lobbies in each building is going to decrease. So you're able to leverage a nicer amenity package and an overall greater tenant experience in removing that limitation. So it's really, to us, it's about the quality of product. It's not about density or scale. And I think that's the biggest point I wanted to emphasize. Yeah, if this amendment were not approved, we would look at, we would really be forced to look at a sprawled out garden style development. However, again, we don't feel that would be of the highest quality multifamily product that we could deliver here. So we feel strongly about that, and yeah, hopefully take that into consideration.
I think it's a question either for you or Ed. Ed, under the current right there, how many can I build right there? Okay, like if I took the same project he's talking about, we followed the normal, like the zoning that's in place, how many units could fit on that?
Tough question to answer because a lot of factors go into that. I think with what Nair is proposing on the galley, 12 acres, is that a 12 acre piece? Mm-hmm. 240 is probably getting right to the max. And there's other things. There's stormwater, there's erosion and sedimentation control, there's environmental impacts, there's traffic. Another key point is if this project moves forward, there will be a traffic study, and there probably will show that there will be traffic improvements needed in that area.
Right.
So you can't tell us that right now, as it's currently zoned, there could be X number of units
When you guys looked
as
at
opposed to 240.
So when you looked at
Correct.
this layout, how many did ballpark? Do you have it? Did you get that far?
If we were to maximize.
If you just followed the current, yeah. Did you look? I mean,
We went as far as, we were trying to stay in that range of 230 to 260 units. It just fit our investment profile for this site. We felt like that was appropriate. I think in terms of the existing floor area ratio and the site, you could probably push closer to 300. In terms of traffic, just going back to that point, so Water Dam is a PennDOT and state-owned road, so we will have to go through the HOP permit process, which will dictate the impact of our development, and if that impact justifies any traffic improvements based on our development, we would have to contribute to that. So, in comparison to other uses that are approved within this zoning district, I think multifamily is a much lighter traffic impact than retail, hotel, casino, some of the other uses that are approved by right. So I think comparatively speaking, looking at alternatives in regards to traffic, something's ultimately going to be developed here, and I think when you're looking at traffic, it's going to be a lighter impact for a multifamily development of this scale.
Thank you.
So just to be clear, someone could come in and build something and put in potentially 300 units and have a higher density population than you doing what you're existing wanting to do with removing the 36 units per structure. So the 36 units per structure has nothing to do with the density of what's going on with the population.
No, it's really, the other limitations are really worse than that.
But I thought you guys were looking at also putting in a retail aspect to this if you get your condensed areas. So you're really not saving us anything from eliminating retail or the other impacts that you mentioned.
There is about a 3/4 acre parcel along Water Dam that is isolated by an existing wetland that initially we earmarked as potentially a future retail development. We've since pulled back on that, and it's no longer in our plan to develop that or parcel that as a retail development. So this would be 100% multifamily.
So if you keep it to, what would you say, 1 or 2 buildings, is the rest of the parcel going to be green space then? Is that the plan?
Well, it'll be parking.
Parking, you need a lot of spaces, I would think.
Are there any other changes from what, other than the commercial? Because initially your presentation had that involved. Any other changes since then?
No, still the parking garage. So we will have some structured parking, and we're currently looking at whether that will be a precast structured parking garage or if we're going to do subgrade parking. So that's something that we're still assessing and just come down to cost.
Thank you.
Is it possible to put on the screen the lot we're talking about? I mean, I know this is just something that somebody pulled off the internet or something, but we can't. I mean, there might be people at home or people here that aren't exactly sure where this is, and if we have it up there. I know it sits behind Ace, and it's behind everything on Water Dam there, and then Galley, but it would be nice if maybe we had a little overhead aerial view or whatever it is we have. How do you think? There you go. That's a little bit better. I can sort of find it.
I didn't go through the effort of pulling up our GIS system and doing property boundaries and such, but what we're looking at tonight is essentially this piece of property here. This is Water Dam Road, this is Route 19, this is the Primrose Daycare, this is Galley Road, and there's about a 12-acre parcel situated between the triangle of those 3 roads.
How big is the parcel?
12 acres.
About 12 acres.
12 acres. It's not, who owns below that, or is that Norster Bank?
Norster Bank.
Close to our border with Norster Bank.
Municipal boundaries about, it's about where the river is. About right here is the municipal boundary.
Anybody have any other questions from the developer?
I know. Mr. Kamen, good to see you.
Good evening. Good evening. I get paid to be here, so at least I had to make it look like I've added some value. So,
to yourself, maybe.
You're just you being here.
Thank you. Good evening. So, John Kamen, K-A-M-I-N. Address is 1806 Frick Building, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15219. I'm the attorney for the proposed developer. Just a couple things that I thought would be important to add or to highlight for you as part of the discussions, that this really isn't about greater density, as Patrick said. This is about a different type of density. And what Nair has found, as well as many of my other clients, and I think I have probably 8 of these similar projects going on, both in the city and the suburbs, including up in Butler, and a couple down in Washington, is that today's demographic in terms of what people are looking for is different than it was 25 or 30 years ago in terms of the 36-unit garden apartment style. People are looking for amenitized development. They're looking for being able to have social spaces and also workspaces where if they're working from home, there are business centers, there are fitness rooms, there are all these other items that exist, and those can only exist within a certain level of single structure density. So again, we're not talking about more units, we're talking about how those units are built. And as a result of that, you've seen from some of the ones that your staff has pulled, these types of units going ahead and developing in your neighborhood and neighborhood surrounding communities, because this is what people are looking for. They are generally attracting either the young professional who are either have jobs that are close or working from home, but do want more of a lifestyle type community. So this is an essentially opening up part of Peters to a different demographic that you don't already serve. So that's one point I wanted to make. The second point is that the development is actually less intense because of the going vertical in 2 structures. Well, there is parking. You would have parking on the other types of units anyhow, but it's less intense because it's concentrated. And again, we're not changing the number of units, we're focusing where they are. So that does allow for green space, trails, other types of items, and it's also less intense from a stormwater perspective because you're disturbing less and therefore having, essentially less impervious that you're creating. The other point that I wanted to make is that this, in terms of overall intensity of the development from a traffic perspective, again, you're not really different from where you were before. Because you could have the same number of units, which would generally result in the same number of trips. With respect to where you're locating this and where staff is recommending it, it is in a very good section of the township in terms of having good access to both Route 19 and Water Dam and Galley Road. Some of you may remember some of the longer faces that have been here. I used to own the site on the corner of Water Dam and Galley Road, so I'm very familiar with it. And can say if you're looking to have density within the township, this is a very good location for it because of its access to traffic. So those are just a couple of the points that I wanted to highlight. The other thing I would say, just from a quality of rent standpoint, because of the amenitized nature, you'll see that these units will be renting for probably 15 to 25% more than what you would get from a garden apartment. Now, they're more expensive to build. You heard Patrick talk about structured parking. You would never do that in a garden apartment. But the rents that they command are because of the amenities and the product that they offer. So this is broadening out Peters' tax base to allow you to attract the young professional. And also, we do see in other projects that aren't Nair projects, but other projects of clients of mine who have built this type of product, you also do find snowbirds running in them as well. People who want to sell a house and have moved but want to keep a good, desirable location in Peters Township. So you're seeing in our other units and other projects, a lot of people will come in and get a nice apartment and they'll have it, they'll be here for the summers and they'll enjoy the pool, the outdoor recreation and everything else that it has to offer. So it does open up a new demographic and again, you're talking about a higher level product and a higher price product, which it will bring to the township. So happy to answer any questions that anybody has, and I know Patrick covered most of it, but I just wanted to highlight those points.
I feel like in the initial presentation, there was really one main entrance on Water Dam Road. Galley Road was going to have some type of access point, but not be entrance, and I don't remember any mention of Route 19.
There's not going to be any.
No, I don't think there's access from Route 19. I'm saying it has great access to Route 19. Sure. So in terms of the traffic that would be coming from that site, they would come to Water Dam and hit Route 19. I wasn't talking. I apologize if I misspoke there in terms of direct access from Route 19. It doesn't have it. And we haven't fully site planned it yet. This is just still in the zoning stage. We have to get past this step to know that we can go to the next one. Thank you.
Johnson.
How's your dad doing?
Thank you.
He's good.
Tell him I
Birthday
said,
today, 84.
tell him I said congratulations.
Okay, we'll take audience comments now.
Name and full address, or? Lucas Cody. I live at 109 Tewberry Lane in Benicia. First, just wanted to thank the council for opening this up to a public hearing tonight. Appreciate that you appreciate the impact this has on our community and want to hear what everyone has to say. I don't have any particular questions for the council at this point, just wanted to highlight a couple of observations. First being that 2 of the 3 amendments that are proposed tonight are in direct response to the proposed project that's going to be built, or project that's proposed to be built on this site. And the second observation is just in regards to the amendment to eliminate the 50% requirement for parking to have the 3 enclosed sides and a roof. In the December correspondence that NAIR had to Peters Township, they noted the economic feasibility impact that this requirement would have on the project. It seems like the intent of this change is mostly financial in terms of the benefit that it would have to the project to make it more financially feasible to complete this project in the parameters that they've proposed. So again, just wanted to comment and kind of bring those observations to light here, but no questions in particular for anyone tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Guess we'll continue with this section.
Sure.
Let's go up.
Adam Kennedy, 106 T-Berry Lane. So again, to echo Luke's comments, thanks for opening this up to public comment. Just kind of starting off, just wanted to just kind of raise a counterpoint to what was proposed around the 36 unit maximum. I think that keeping that in place does change the economics of the project and potentially makes it not feasible from that standpoint. So that's something to think about. Secondly, just wondering if there's been any type of analysis related to how much of a demand there is for 250 apartment units within the township. I think that there really isn't anything like that as we currently sit here today. And also, we kind of sit in an interesting place geographically. You know, we talk about young professionals, but we're kind of far away from the city. And we're also not very close to the T station or any other rapid transit from that standpoint. Also, we talk about elderly individuals where, you know, this is kind of a high rise where most of them are looking for a flat surface to move to. So I don't know that that really kind of works well within our community. Finally, you know, just kind of taking feedback from the community. I'm sure that people will reach out to you. The common theme has been that, you know, most of the individuals in the community do not want higher density housing, and it seems to be that is much of what is in the pipeline. A few of you ran under the platform of Friends of Peters Township. Many of these proposals do not seem to be friendly. So I'd just like you all to reflect upon what that platform was and take that into consideration as we're looking at these proposals going forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Who wants to go next, sir?
Hi, Russ Milliken, 511 Harvest View Drive in Benicia. So I'm relatively new to the township, and so I'm relatively new to this whole process. I do want to make one observation. In 2 of the 3 amendments that are proposed, we're looking at the wholesale elimination of any kind of limit, right?
I'm sorry, what limit?
Wholesale?
The wholesale elimination of any kind of limit. So we're going from a limit of 36 to no limit, and then a imposition of a 50% to 0, right? Any developer doesn't have to provide any kind of covered parking. Now, while this developer may have good intentions and they may be abiding by, you know, being good neighbors and good developers for us, I want to caution you in the future that could be abused, and you would have no recourse at that point.
But I think this is the only area that would be subject to these regulations if we amended them, or is there other areas in the township?
The off-street parking in regard to the 50%, that is township-wide.
Oh, that is township-wide?
For all multifamily developments, that is correct. The FAR, floor area ratio, that is the entirety of the mixed-use activity district. The maximum of 36 units per structure is the MA1 sub-district within the overall mixed-use
And
activity.
that's just this parcel.
It's not just this parcel, it's this section of the township. But
It's the
this
only
is the
vacant
only parcel really situated for development within that sub-district.
But if anything else is so zoned in the future, then these regulations as adopted would apply. Am I right?
If he sells their building and somebody wants to level it, sorry.
Sure, yeah, I mean, it would apply to every parcel within this sub-district. That is correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else have any comments?
Be somebody on this side.
Mrs. Merrill?
Monica Merrill, M-E-R-R-E-L-L, 105 Walnut Drive. Good evening, Council. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
In March, when this was on the agenda, I sent comments to several of you voicing my opinion that this was not a good decision. And Council did deny that change, but yet here we are again. I'm not exactly sure why. I'm here to repeat my objection. The developer is not having any particular hardship. What they want to do, in my opinion, is to make it easier or less expensive to build. They can certainly reduce the density by just eliminating some of the apartments. They could reduce from 240 to whatever. I think it's wrong to presume the changes would be applicable to every property in the mixed use or multi-residential, as Mr. Finch just explained. You make this decision, it's going to apply to anything zoned that way. There are parcels on the zoning map that are very small, they're narrow. I'm not sure how an impact, what kind of negative impact an ordinance like this would have on those places. The properties are too small to allow the increased density and reduced parking. We have issues with traffic already on roads. We have 2-lane roads here in the township, and these changes will only exacerbate that. A blanket change to the ordinance is not right for these properties. You know, when we wrote the existing ordinances, there were a lot of input from the comprehensive plan. And while we may not have envisioned a plan like this, of this size, or an apartment building per se, we have to consider whether we need to have a plan for a project of this size or this type. The developer is citing the comprehensive plan as a way to diversify housing. I'm not sure I agree that this is going to happen with this particular project. An apartment building is not a bad thing. That's not what I'm against. But the complex that they're presenting is excessive, it's high density, it doesn't actually back into a diverse group. He stated himself that they would be higher rents, that they would be targeting professionals, and they would be targeting people who wanted to downsize here in Peters. I will tell you now that I have heard in the past from people who have moved out of Peters because they cannot afford a home or what potentially could be the rent that this group is planning to propose. The apartment buildings might attract a younger crowd, but I doubt they'll attract seniors. I have 3 other concerns for this development. Again, the amount of additional traffic at the Water Dam and Galley Road intersection will be substantial. I believe they'll need to have a traffic light. That was discussed when Primrose was being planned. It was my suggestion that was going to have to happen. And I think that if Al Nyer proceeds with this plan, they should match the plan to our existing ordinance, and they should be obliged to pay for the traffic improvements that are going to be required to make that a safe intersection. It's a very dangerous intersection right now, and additional traffic will make it worse. They talked about retail on the plan, and just tonight, we heard that that's off the table. Peters Township is not Cranberry. Peters Township needs more commercial and more retail. So comparing Peters to Cranberry is a fallacy. We're an entirely different aesthetic. I would really have hoped that they would have done some retail or commercial to offset the residential. There will be a lot of renters here, in addition to the many people who concern is whether the township is prepared to make sure that each and every renter is counted as a resident and they're paying their local service tax and their earned income tax. In addition, as the gentleman alluded to, if people are conducting businesses out of these apartments, the whole business occupation, home occupation tax. So I'm not sure the township is in a position to make sure that they can guarantee they'll be collecting everything they need to collect, because we need those revenues, because increased volume means more public services. And more public services means more tax dollars for everybody else. And you know that this will be an area where they will have to monitor. I ask you to vote no to proposed changes when it comes to the August meeting. I also do agree with residents who have stated in prior meetings that we need to slow down construction somehow. I know that we can't do a moratorium. I think I would like to see that we restrict the number of conservation overlay, high density, less than a quarter of an acre properties, because that is also contributing to the huge growth in the population. Peters Township cannot support 32,000 people. Our infrastructure does not support that. And until we address the infrastructure, people who move here will be getting mad because of the traffic, the poor conditions of the roads, and other issues that are going to be developing. So, thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mike Holtkamp, 108 Bremen Lane. I've lived in this township for 25 years, and I've never felt compelled to come here and speak to this august body, but I am now. And actually, the pictures that we saw before about made me want to vomit. That's not what I moved to. In fact, on our website, the Peters Township, it describes Peters Township as a ideal setting for living and learning with rolling hills and a mix of farmland and suburban landscapes. I didn't leave Mount Lebanon to come to Peters Township so that it can look like McKnight Road. And that's what Route 19 is going to turn into, if it doesn't go one step further and become Route 51 at Overbrook. Because, as I think Ms. Merrill mentioned earlier, the traffic is already unbearable. I would encourage you to see the traffic that goes by here in the morning, trying to drop kids off to school, the nightmare traffic on Route 19, the frequent accidents. I live just off Route 19. There's an accident almost every day in that center lane. Putting an additional 1,000 cars on the road with this high-density property doesn't make sense. I was really deeply moved when I heard the developer talk about their feelings, their deep feelings about how they feel this will affect the community. I'm a taxpayer. How I feel counts more. I pay taxes as a community. I love this community. I've lived in this community for a quarter century. How I feel counts. I get it. It seems like everybody on this board, I've heard two gentlemen basically try to sell this on behalf of the developer, trying to convince us why this is a good thing. I don't understand why you feel an obligation to advocate for a developer. You should be advocating for the taxpayers. That's why. I don't understand, too, why we would want to pass any ordinance that makes the community less nice. Anything we should do should be trying to make the community more nice. I don't get how jamming a whole bunch of properties in, and they've been described with a bunch of pictures, which, by the way, folks, ain't what's going in there. Okay, that's not what's going in there. Those are representative pictures. It may or may not look like that, and it probably won't look like that in 5 or 10 years. Renters, we don't know. So the point is, they've showed some representative pictures of what it might look like, not what it actually does look like, and we're supposed to buy into that vision. I think it's just a horrible thing from top to bottom, and I keep hearing about these zonings that only apply to this area and only apply to that area. It's a slippery slope. Once that precedent gets set that would make an exception over here, what prevents the next Friends of Peters Township, couldn't be a bigger misnomer than I've ever heard in my life, but Friends of Peters Township then doing it somewhere else? You set a precedent. We now have exceptions all over the place. I lived in Mount Lebanon. There was exceptions. I was on the zoning review board. We made exceptions. I mean, you can't believe the exceptions we made. we just are starting down a slippery slope that to me, I just don't get how this, I get it benefits builders, maybe it benefits somebody on this council personally, I don't know. It does not benefit the residents, and that's where your first responsibility should be. Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience wish to comment?
I wouldn't want to follow that.
Okay, seeing none. Any further comments or discussion from council?
Yes, I'd like to speak. For those that have followed this, there have been some of us that have been opposed. The situation that I would probably characterize my thoughts about, there are some provisions within these proposed revisions that are actually what you are all arguing for. They are reductions in certain criteria. The problem I have is the scale of these buildings is not in the character that I believe belongs in Peters Township. I fought the waters. I fought when I said 4 stories is too much, and it went to 5 because we allow the basements to be the 5th floor. I would like to see a greater reduction in this floor area ratio. That would tend to reduce the scale of the building as it would dominate the site. And quite frankly, anybody that goes down Galley or comes up Galley Road at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, it can be back all the way back to the church and maybe even further beyond that. The biggest disappointment I have, and I've lived here since '77, is the fact that we've not been able to accommodate the traffic. My goal had been originally to end up with an east-west connector road, like equivalent to a McMurray Road, and we just never have been able to successfully negotiate that through the private properties in the state. I'm opposed to the proposed amendments. I'm opposed to the concept of the scale of the building. That's probably a position that I've not been persuaded to change here tonight.
Anybody else, council, wish to comment?
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing, the proposed amendment to the Peters Township zoning ordinance.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that concludes the public hearing section of this meeting. I'd like to thank the stenographer for their help. Let's wait a minute.
Hey.
All right, Mr. Collier.
Let's go.
All right. Next item on the agenda will be approval of minutes from July 11, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Well, we can't go too fast, can we?
Carries 7-0. Special reports. Not seeing any audience comments. Sir, do you have a comment? Okay. Perfect. Move along then. There's no unfinished business. New business items A and B. I believe we're going to lump together. Revolving around the McCroby subdivision plan number 1 and the departure regulations in order to accommodate that.
Yes, so the McCrobies are owners of a 10-acre parcel that fronts both Bower Hill Road and Snyder Road. So what you see on the screen right now, Bower Hill Road is, assuming I can get this thing to work, there it is. Bower Hill Road borders the right side of that screen, and Snyder is right, there's Snyder Road there. This is Bower Hill Road here. They're proposing to divide the parcel into 3 lots. Lot number 1, which is this L-shaped lot here, would be 5.9 acres. Lot 2, which is right here, would be 2 acres. And lot 3, which is up top here, would be 1.95 acres. So lot 1 will have driveway access to Snyder Road. The other 2 lots have access on Bower Hill Road. Now, under our code of ordinances, direct driveway access to streets classified as collectors or arterials is prohibited. Bower Hill Road is a collector road. So therefore, in order for this subdivision to proceed, they need a departure from that regulation. And the reason I think council should consider giving it is twofold. One, Mike Mudry, our traffic engineer, has gone out to the site and field verified that the driveways on lots numbers 2 and 3 would both have 300-plus feet of sight distance. And secondly, and probably more importantly, as part of this subdivision, there would have to be an extension of public sewer from the Just About Farms plan. And if this public sewer was extended, it would serve not only these 3 lots, but 4 existing homes on Snyder Road and 2 existing homes on Bower Hill that currently do not have access to public sewer. The sanitary authorities reviewed the proposed subdivision and sanitary sewer construction drawings. So if there's any technical questions, I would defer to Ed or Seth. They're both here, so.
Where's the Bower Hill Schoolhouse here? Is that the front corner there?
Right. Come down.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Go ahead.
I got it.
Got it.
It's right there.
Okay, so that lot there, the lower lot, will have access right there off the bend on Snyder.
Yes.
And we don't think that's an issue for sight distance or anything like that?
We checked it with our traffic engineer, Mike Mudry, went out to all 3 sites, and great sight distance. And for that big lot, Lot 1, the best sight distance is at the bend. And there's a condition on the plan, when it's recorded, that driveway come in at that location.
Okay. What's the parcel on Bower Hill Road between Lot 2 and 3?
I can't hear you.
What's the parcel between Lot 2 and 3 there?
That's an existing single-family home. There's 2 single-family homes on Bower Hill Road there that don't have sewer that will be able to tap into this sewer that would be extended by Mr. and Mrs. McCrovey.
So you don't think so? There's no issue with sight distance on that lot that's fronting on Snyder?
None at all.
Because I know as you come up that hill, I mean, it gets pretty steep there right behind the schoolhouse. That's what
300-plus feet of sight distance in both directions on both of those lots on Bower Hill Road.
I understand the lots on Bower Hill Road. I'm talking about the one on Snyder.
Snyder, great sight distance up to Bower Hill and great sight distance looking down toward Just About if you put that driveway at the
apex
bend.
All right, good enough. I'll make a motion that we approve the request for a departure from regulations related to Chapter 385, Article 6, Section 36 of the Peters Township Code of Ordinances titled Subdivision and Land Development Design Standards for the McCrovey Plan of Lots. And I'll make a motion that we approve for recording purposes of the McCrovey Subdivision Plan Number 1 as shown on drawings prepared by HMT and Associates that dated December 2nd, 2021 for Paul and Erica McCrovey, subject to the conditions recommended by the Peters Township Planning Commission.
Is that subject to any planning commission or DEP stuff?
I believe that's what I just said, Mr. Arcuri.
I didn't hear you say that, but I'll second.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion?
Definitely a motion proposed by an attorney.
And seconded by an attorney.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 7-0. Item C, approval of the Brookwood Place Amendment Number 6.
Aye, carry.
This one I will defer entirely to Mr. Zook.
This is 3 units in the Brookwood Place development. That's a townhouse development under construction on
Magnolia.
correct, Brookwood Road. They've got the foundation walls up on this, so this is when they come in and pinpoint the locations of the party walls so that they can pinpoint exactly what people are buying and produce deeds. So this is number 6. There's 2 more buildings to come, so we'll see 2 more of these.
And we just did one of these a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, did we?
We did, number 5 a few weeks ago.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Brookwood Place Amendment Number 6 as shown on drawings prepared by Sperdute.
Sperdute.
How do you say it?
Sperdute.
Sperdute. Land Survey, thank you. Survey dated May 31st, 2022 for the Donegal Land Partners, LLC.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 7-0. Frank, payroll and bills.
Mr. Chairman, I have reviewed the payroll and bills. I find them to be in order. I move they be approved as submitted.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 7-0. Anybody have any items they'd like to discuss from the report
There
section?
was something I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember what.
I have a comment relative to
Any correspondence?
No.
Okay.
Reports, I thought he said. Anyway, my comment is I've been frustrated, I guess, with 3 efforts approaching township staff relative to our inability to get around to patching potholes or making significant restoration of some of these surfaces. And I noticed in the June report for the road department, again, an absence of that activity. We spent money for a hot bucket or whatever we want to call it, and I don't think it's been out yet, or if it has.
It was out today, actually, but they were, Public Works received that hot box at the end of last month, actually, and was waiting to do most serious patching once they had that. They were up on Walnut Drive, actually, today doing some base repair and stabilizing some curbs in that area. I know you've raised concerns about Center Church, Johnston Road, and Robin Hood. They plan on getting out there. I will tell you, in speaking with Mr. Herson, one of the things he said was several of those roads are actually going to need base repair, so they can go out and do some patching now, but they're going to have to come back in the fall and actually do some base repair.
Well, we've got situations where people are pulling across the midpoint of the road just to avoid driving down through the potholes, and the potential of a head-on issue is...
Yeah, that condition exists on Ferrovia as well, going toward Sugar Camp. It's pretty bad there now.
And if you got anybody out there with a bicycle, it
was bad there a couple years ago.
Anyway, I'm not so sure that I'm satisfied with the priority that we put into this, and I speak up again.
Just highlight a few things in the reports, and I will make them very brief and quick. Sergeant Davis, the police department report. Sergeant Davis will be leaving the township after on August 3rd. He served 29 years. He's going to take over as the superintendent of police for O'Hara Township. So it's quite a statement about his accomplishment, but also speaks well of the department as a whole.
Has a replacement sergeant been named?
No, not until he leaves. We will start a testing process for the sergeant, an interview process for that. With Parks and Rec, the work is complete. If you go down to Venetia Park, you'll see a new walking path that was put in, actually funded by a CDBG grant through the Redevelopment Authority of Washington County. That work is complete, and the small soccer field was converted to 2 baseball fields and was funded entirely by the Baseball Association. The Read Local, Eat Local program is next Saturday, August 6th. If I did not tell you that, Lacey would be in my office first thing tomorrow morning. Runs from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. They're going to have 20 local authors and 3 food trucks. The last thing, the financial report, I know we talked a lot about delinquent garbage fees. For the first 6 months of this year, Jordan Tax Services collected over $108,000 in delinquent garbage fees. To give you some idea, through the first 6 months of last year, they collected $67,000. They are being more aggressive, and Jordan has been partnering with Ed and his department in going after vacant properties that are delinquent in their garbage fees as well, to try to address those problems.
There you go.
So that's all I have.
Thanks, Ryan. Anybody else have any? Go ahead.
I went through trying to find a couple of people's phone numbers, and I had made a request, Ryan, to put an updated directory. I know we've got a new township staff people, and I'd like that to get circulated to everybody when it's finished. Tom, that's probably on your desk.
Right. That's probably a good thing.
Anything else on our reports, miscellaneous, or next agenda? All 3?
Didn't somebody at the last meeting ask for an update on something?
Hidden Valley.
What is it?
Hidden Valley.
The slippage.
We have that update?
You know what? Unfortunately, Mr. Zmitis not being there, I do not have it. I will make sure it's at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. See nothing else. Do we have an executive session?
We do not.
Okay. Then this meeting is adjourned.
Sure.